Mitch, we're back. Second quarterback signing in a matter of about an hour. We just talked Sam Darnold. Justin Fields has inked a 2-year deal with the New York Jets. There was reports earlier this morning that he was looking for a guarantee that he would be the starter. 2 years, $40 million, $30 million guaranteed. This probably locks him in at least a year as being, we're going to give it a year, see if this is a reclamation project that we can fix. Maybe we get lucky and find our future quarterback. If not, gives Dynasty managers a whole another window to sell pretty strongly. So what's your initial thoughts, Mitch?
To me, this reminds me so much of Anthony Richardson and how much he got steamed up last year. So if anyone who forgets, in Dynasty at the start of September, keep trade cut, which, whether you like the website or hate the website, positional values are pretty close from them across the board. He was quarterback 6. And the whole hope, we all knew Anthony Richardson could not throw the ball well, but he has such a high rushing market share in that offense. And each game, he has a chance to run for 100 yards. That's what we thought going into the year, right? He gets steamed up, and now he dove down to quarterback 22. But that hope is still there. Even how bad Anthony Richardson was last season, he's still quarterback 22 because there's that hope. Hey, maybe he could actually learn to throw the ball, but his rushing upside is still there. Now, Justin Fields this last season wasn't terrible throwing the ball. Was it good? No, but he 65% completion rate. It's fine. He gave you about 35, 40 yards per game rushing. He had you 5 rushing touchdowns. I really, really think the narrative this year is there's going to be out of all these quarterback signings, we're going to see free agency wise, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, people are going to talk themselves into Justin Fields being a great quarterback start this year, more so than any other starter we could see, unless we get a Rodgers to the Steelers, and then maybe there's a little bit there. But I think Justin Fields is going to be the guy that everybody tries to talk themselves into.
Yeah, he's quarterback 29. Let me just talk a little bit about Fields himself. I mean, he played limited action last year as the starter. He came in a couple games where he wasn't the starter and they'd use him in a play or a package or a series. But effectively, he only had, 4 games has started in the entire season. And I'm just looking at, he was one of 3 quarterbacks that scored more than 40% of his fantasy points for himself on the ground. The other 2, Jalen Hurts and Anthony Richardson. So right there, you already kind of get the idea of the archetype that he has. He's quarterback 29. Like for you, not talking about, we'll get to his weapons in a second. We'll get to what this means for Garrett Wilson, what type of offense they're going to run, etc. But just for Fields himself, how far do you think he gets steamed up? Like, is it possible if we let this marinate a little bit where all of a sudden you're able to trade Fields for a T-Law, a Dak, someone that's the biggest takeaway. Just like the Sam Darnold discussion where you had Darnold, you were probably just sitting there hoping something good happens. But if your plan was, I don't like the volatility of this guy, like Fields is the ultimate argument of you now have a window. And you have to be able to separate the fact that he could be a quarterback 12 or better for a year, but then don't complain next year when it's talking about, well, the Jets may draft a quarterback and he's not long for being a starter anymore, and then you can't get anything for him. So, like, you have to act, but I think you have a window. How are you playing it timing-wise? Are you going to let this marinate a little bit before you start sending out those offers or what?
Oh, I think so. So a big thing is the best ball guys haven't really hit it yet as far as like underdog, all of that hype that happens that builds through May, June, July, August. And those were the guys that I believe really steamed up Anthony Richardson because it was a really easy stack to make with him and Pittman or him and Downs, however you wanted to do it. So Richardson kept getting boosted. I think Justin Fields is going to be the same way, as to where I would say there's an 80% chance that come August, he is valued higher than Dak. He's higher than Tua, Penix, Bryce Young. So that immediately puts him in a top 20 quarterback tier. And I think there's a very, very good likelihood that actually happens.
Yeah, when it comes to the weapons himself, I think there's a couple people in the chat that said Chaz said, hate to say it, but people aren't going to steam him up. I mean, there's going to be some leagues where he's already been passed around the last couple of years based on this same type of hopium, and that nobody's going to overreact and pay the ironclad price. Again, I think dynasty managers, Mitch, are getting smarter to where they don't immediately go, you know what, I'm going to go start firing first-round picks around for Darnold or Fields. But you have to remember there's levels to these things. There's now the potential that manager, sure, they may not want to give up a first, but they're more open to now listening to their Tua that they have over there that they've never liked, but they also feel they couldn't get enough value for him to get rid of him as their QB2. They're now willing to go, if I can flip Tua for Fields, I may do that because I don't give a shit past this year. I just want as much production as I can get, and I don't even like this guy anyway, and nobody was buying my Tua. So I think there's just more possibilities for you to take Fields, apply him to a deal, and see what you can get. That's going to be very, very league by league specific in terms of what quarterbacks you can pivot to. I wanted to pull this up. Let's talk about the weapons a little bit. People are going to remember everyone thought DJ Moore was cooked when Fields was the starter, and then he had his best season ever, right? To the fact where DJ Moore never really had a good quarterback, but the year he had with Fields was incredible, right? But let's look at Fields. So I went back since Fields was drafted, and I'm just looking at his passing efficiency. And yes, I'm still scrolling. I believe there is 42 qualifying quarterbacks that have played at least 750 snaps at quarterback. Here's Fields, 35th. And this is slightly above 0, which 0 is very bad. 0 isn't like average here. 0 is very, very bad. But this is the company that he's in. Gardner Minshew, Caleb Williams as a rookie, Bryce Young, limited sample size, Sam Howell backup, Deshaun Watson, awful, Davis Mills, Zach Wilson, he's not in a good cohort, Mitch, where I'm confident buying into multiple weapons. So what does this mean for, as of right now, it's just Garrett Wilson. They don't even have a tight end. So as of right now, do you think if the Jets plan on adding weapons, what does this mean for Garrett Wilson? What does it mean for their running game? They actually had a decent offensive line. I think their offensive line might be one of the strengths on their offense relative to their skill positions. What does this mean for the other peripheral guys, Wilson, Breece Hall, et cetera? And what do we do? How do we react if the Jets draft a receiver, a tight end? What do we do then? What if they draft Tyler Warren? Do we like that? What are your thoughts?
Wheels up for Breece Hall. We know rushing quarterbacks help running backs. Does it hurt their catching upside? Yes, it does. But the offense is just better, so they have a lot more opportunities than an offense with just a pocket passer to where that guy isn't good. You're doing a 3 and out. Justin Fields gives you more chances for first downs. Garrett Wilson, we've seen it in the chat. He's going to be fine. He's going to be more than fine. I really like him going to next year. But we have to remember Cole Kmet had his best year ever also with Justin Fields. The 23 season, he went out and had 70 catches for 700 yards and 6 touchdowns. We pray for that with, any tight end that's outside of the top 6. So, and that was with DJ Moore having his big year. So for me, I definitely think Fields can put 2 fantasy contributors, have them produce each week. I would prefer it to be a tight end than another wide receiver too. I can't think of a wide receiver 2 they'd bring in that I'd be like, you know what, I really want to bring in that guy. But maybe they do bring in what they go out and get Loveland, right? I love Loveland. It's not going to put me off Loveland if the Jets take him. And then all of a sudden, if there's any talk, Fields is his quarterback, I'm like, I'll buy into that.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is going to be they're going to add a weapon, whether it's a tight end, whether it's a receiver. And how are people going to treat that? I'm looking at how the Bears ran their offense in 2023 because we had a limited sample size with Fields in 2024, to be fair, right? But I mean, look at the numbers. This is probably what's pretty typical with a Fields-led offense. The pass rates in all of these situations. Curiously, the one situation that they were positive was second and 2 or less, which, I like looking at these charts because they kind of tell me, okay, if it's 2nd and 2 or less and your Fields is your quarterback, don't you kind of feel maybe there's some confidence he's going to be able to get the first down on 3rd? So we might as well just take a chance. We might as well just throw it and see what happens. But I think if you're just looking at the weapons, I mean, I'm going to pull up another stat here. I'm not going to share it because I have it on a Google Doc. But so where do you think last year out of, and it's going to be a smaller sample size, obviously, but out of 44 quarterbacks last year, Mitch, where do you think Fields ranked in terms of fantasy points created for his weapons?
Oh.
So like basically how many PPR points did he create for his passing game? I mean, a lot of factors go into that, but where do you think he ranked out of 44?
Just knowing how hard it was to play a Steelers offensive weapon outside of Najee last year, I'm going to say 38th.
A little higher, but 31st.
Yeah.
But not a lot of inspiring guys below him. I mean, when the guys below you are Watson, Richardson, Cooper Rush, Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, like a lot of either not starters or bad starters. So right there, like I just look at this as a gauge. I mean, Fields last year, only per attempt, he was like a more than a half PPR point lower per attempt than even Sam Darnold was, than even Jalen Hurts was, Jordan Love. Like, and those guys weren't at the very, very top. But like what that's telling me is that obviously the Packers and probably the Jets are not going to be on the higher end in terms of passing rate. But when they are, you're still not even getting the efficiency from the quarterback that you have. So it's very much like this needs to be a concentrated offense for the weapons to thrive, which is good right now because all they have is Garrett Wilson. But if they add another weapon, if they draft a first-round tight end, like all of a sudden we're getting to a point where, I mean, let me ask you this. What's Garrett Wilson's target share? Let's end it on this. He's averaged 170 targets for every season in his career thus far. Does he even get close to that?
I think so. I mean, does he get close to that? No, but I do think
a lot for a Fields offense.
Yeah, I was just going to say he's going to be, I was thinking target share wise, he's still going to be 28, 30%, whatever he's been. But how many actually in a Fields offense? Does he top 140? I don't know, which is still really good because you're probably still paying a wide receiver 2 price for him.
Well, the share could be high.
Yeah,
the share could be high, but the sheer denominator is lower because of the way they're going to run the offense. And that's where I think you just have to be careful how high you're going to steam Fields or steam Garrett Wilson up if it's just the argument of there's nobody else, because that's what he has going for him right now. There's nothing else. So people just look at, you're going to hear it in the next week. Oh, look what DJ Moore did with Fields in 2023. Just give Garrett Wilson those stats, but probably higher because Garrett Wilson was better in his career at that point than DJ Moore was when he went to the Bears. Just, get into that logic.
DJ Moore had 136, that outstanding year. So I think
that feels like
darn close.
That feels like if you said 140, right? That's a fair. I think that's a pretty fair projection. 100%. Cool. Well, more news to come. There's been other news that has happened. Probably not worthy of us going live, but we are going to jump in a Discord, ddfantasyfootball.com, scan the QR codes, or check out the site, 50% off, link in the description. And that's where we'll be talking free agency for the rest of the day, unless something breaks, and I'll probably jump back on here with Mitch. Thanks, Mitch.
Yep. Thank you.